In this video, I'm going to show you a super simple step-by-step process that you can use to set yourself up for a successful fat loss phase so that you're not left feeling confused with what calories you should start on, how you go about setting those calories, what adjustments to make, when to make those adjustments. It's the exact process that I used last week to start my photo shoot prep this week, and it's the exact process that I use with my one-to-one coaching clients to help set them up for success as well. And if you're sat there thinking, why should I listen to this guy? Well, I've been a one-to-one coach for around 6 years now, helping people who are stuck on their own, not quite sure what to focus on, where to place their efforts, wondering where they're going wrong, to finally getting into better shape, having more confidence than ever, and just having a body that they finally feel good in. And with that being said, let's jump into this video. Now, what I'm going to be talking you through is an assessment week, and this sounds really fancy, but the reality is it's not. It's actually really simple. And I will say that this method is based around tracking your calories. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh, I just have no desire to track my calories at all, then maybe this video probably isn't for you, but future videos will be. So this is just essentially a nice, easy 3-step process. But what's super important is that you complete all steps super consistently, because we're going to be using the data from all of the 3 steps to set your initial calorie and activity targets for weeks 1 and 2 of your fat loss phase. So if you skip any of these steps here, then you will not be able to do this properly. So part 1 of the 3-step gathering data process is tracking all of your calories. Now, it doesn't really matter what calorie tracking app you use. MyFitnessPal is probably the most common. But what's key here is that for the next 6 to 7 days, you want to be tracking your calories as accurately as you possibly can. So if you're somebody who's not tracked before, I really would just recommend going onto YouTube and just watching a little bit of a tutorial on how to track your calories properly, because what you don't want to be doing is just putting in your food into MyFitnessPal or whatever app you use and just hoping that it's accurate. If you're not weighing out your food, if you're not changing the portion sizes, if you're just using generic portion sizes that the apps give you when you scan your foods, chances are that by the end of the week, when you're looking at all of the data across the 6 to 7 days, your data will not be accurate, and that will defeat the whole point of going through this process, because what we want is 6 to 7 really accurate days so that we know exactly what your calorie average is for the week, exactly what your protein is for the week. What I'd recommend you doing over the week is just get your notes app up in your phone, literally just write nutrition, write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then just for each day, write your calories next to the day and just write your protein next to the day as well. So that is the first and probably the most important part of this first process. The second piece of data that I want you to be tracking is your daily step count. Now, steps are a massive one when it comes to fat loss, and what we want these for is just to kind of see where your current daily average is. So you're going to track them for the next 6 to 7 days, and then you're going to divide it up by the end of the week. And what that's going to give you is just your daily average steps. And the final part of this data gathering process is just a few morning fasted weigh-ins. Now, you're going to do a minimum of 4, but ideally do around 6 to 7 if you can. Now, if you get to the middle of the day and you're like, fuck, I haven't weighed myself, don't weigh yourself for that day. It's not going to be a true representation of what you're weighing. So morning fasted weigh-ins. Only this is just going to give us a chance to see what your body weight fluctuations are like at the end of the week. And then once you've tracked all these pieces of data for 7 days, what you're going to do is you're going to go into your notes app on your phone. You're going to add up all of your calories for the week, and you're going to divide that by 7, and that is going to give you your current daily average calorie intake. You're going to do that for your protein as well. So add them all up, divide them by 7. I want you to do the exact same for your steps. So again, providing that it's 7 days worth, add them all up, divide them by 7. That is your current daily average. And then I want you to do the exact same for your current body weight. And once you do that for your steps, your calories, your protein, and your body weight, you are going to have all of your current averages for the full 7 days. Now you can go about setting your targets, and there's multiple ways that we can go about this, and it really does depend on like where you're currently at in terms of your habits and your fitness journey and what you're able to commit to. So there are a lot of factors that really do go into this, more than probably what we can cover in this video, but I'm going to give you a good baseline and guideline to work from anyway. So let's say if you have a shorter timeline, let's say that might be 6 to 8 weeks. Let's say if you've got a moderate timeline, that might be 8 to 12 weeks. And let's say if you've got a longer timeline, that might be, let's say, 12 to 20 weeks. We can then use that to dictate the initial targets that you set. So let's say if you've got a shorter timeline, what I want you to do with your current daily average calories is I want you to take off around 25 to 30%. Now, if that is a little bit high for you, then go a little bit lower. That's absolutely fine. But these are just some good general guidelines to work from. So now you've got your calorie intake again. If you're on that shorter timeline and you want to go really hard and see changes really fast, what I want you to do is take your current daily step average and, if you can, add anywhere between around 5 to 7K steps to what you're currently doing. This is pretty hefty. However, if you're looking for more of an aggressive approach, then it is the right thing to do. Now, let's say if you're going for more of a moderate timeline, I want you to take off around 20 to 25% from your current daily calorie average, and I want you to add around 3 to 5K steps on top of what you're currently doing. And if you have a longer timeline, what I want you to do is minus off around 10 to 15% from your daily calories, and I want you to add on around 2 to 3K steps. And now in terms of just setting your current protein goal, now again, this will really depend on where you're currently at, because I can set a target now. However, if you're really far from that target and you struggle with your protein, let's say if you was my client, I'd probably set you a lower target based on where you're currently at. But for the purposes of this video, I want you to take your body weight in kgs and times it by anywhere between, let's say, 1.6 grams upwards of 2.5 grams per kilo of body weight. If you're someone who struggles to hit your protein, maybe start on the lower end. If you're someone who can get in plenty of protein, fine. Maybe you want to be somewhere in the middle. But even if you just did 1.6 times your body weight in kilos, it's going to give you a good amount of protein. Now, whatever calorie targets and activity targets that you just came out with, these will be your targets for the next 2 weeks. So your biggest focus right now is being as consistent as you possibly can with your step targets and your calorie targets. So in terms of calories, I want you to aim to be within a minimum of 5% either way. And in terms of your steps, I want you to be hitting those targets a bare minimum of 6 out to 7 days per week. That way, we're keeping consistency on our side and we're stacking the odds of moving things in the right direction in our favor. And if you're watching this video thinking, okay, now I've got these calorie targets and stuff, how do I actually go about structuring my meals? Stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to put a little something in the bio that's going to help you with exactly that. So now let's say 2 weeks have gone by and it's time to make some adjustments. Let's say if your body weight has gone down and it's gone down at a rate that you're pretty happy with, I want you to do absolutely nothing, because if something isn't broken, then we don't need to fix it. So I want you to carry on with your targets for the next 2 weeks and then you'll assess from them. However, if it didn't go down quite at the rate that you'd like, what you could do is just do a small drop in calories. So you could drop off, let's say, another 100 to 150, and you could maybe add an extra 1 to 2K steps, or you could do either of those things. Now, if the 2 weeks have gone by and your weight has stayed the same, what you do depends on which camp you fall into. Now, if you fall into the camp of you've been really consistent, you've been hitting your calorie targets on a day-to-day basis, and you've been really accurate with your tracking as well, and you're confident with all of your food logs, and your steps have been really, really good, so you've been hitting them ideally 7 out of 7 days or a minimum of 6 out of 7, and things aren't still quite moving in the right direction, then what I want you to do is make a bit of a calorie adjustment. Now, how much you adjust is really dependent on how aggressive you want to be, but let's say you could drop anywhere between 150 and 250 calories. And what you could do is you could make a small step adjustment by adding on an extra 1 to 2K steps per day. If you wanted to, you could adjust one of them, ride it out and see what happens. But if you want to be a little bit more proactive, I'd make an adjustment to both of them. Now, if you fall into the camp of not being consistent, then I want you to change absolutely nothing. And it's super important that you don't, because if your calories have been very up and down, your consistency just hasn't been there. You've got multiple days where you haven't been tracking your calories. You've got days where, let's say, if you had a 7K step target and it's 3K one day, 4K another, maybe 6K on another, and your average across the week just isn't where it needs to be, then there is no point in making any adjustments, because if you can't be consistent with the current targets that you have, if we was to reduce your calories and increase your steps, if you can't be consistent with a higher calorie target and a lower step target, then your consistency will most likely just become even worse if you increase your steps and you lower your calories. So the key thing for yourself is keeping all of your targets that you set for week 1 and 2 the exact same. Focus on getting the consistency element locked down first, and only when you've done that, that's when you're in a position to make some changes from there. And now that you have all of this, your job is to just absolutely rinse and repeat this process. Now, there are a few main tools that we can pull from when you do hit plateaus, and those tools are your calories, your steps, and cardio. So you have multiple different tools in your toolbox that you can essentially deploy at different times. You don't always need to deploy them all at once. Sometimes you might just use one, sometimes you might use two. And if you want to be a bit more aggressive and really encourage those scale weight drops, then you might use all three, but it is completely dependent on you. Let's say if you're somebody who wants to keep their calorie intake a little bit higher, then what it might mean is that your activity will just need to be a little bit higher than the average person. If you're someone who's happy to have a lower calorie target, then on the opposite end of that, that means that you can probably get away with having overall lower activity as well. So it really is just person dependent on what your individual preferences are. But if you just pick and choose from your toolbox at multiple times throughout the journey when you hit a plateau, that is going to help keep steering you in the right direction. But the main nail that I really want to hammer down from this video is that only make changes when your consistency has been there, and just be really honest with yourself. Because if you've been hitting your targets 5 out of 7 days and you think, okay, that's good enough, I have been consistent, let me make some changes, then your standard for consistency probably isn't where it needs to be, because I'm talking at least a minimum of 6 out of 7 days in terms of step targets, calorie targets over a 2-week period. So just make sure that you're really honest with yourself. And finally, one thing that I haven't really covered in this video is actually how to go about hitting your calorie targets and structuring your meals. So I've got a little something for you. I've put together a little video training, it's in a link at the bottom of this video, of a super simple method that you can implement to gain some really good structure, routine around your nutrition, and just have a really good system in place to just simplify your nutrition, because it doesn't need to be complex. And it's a method that I use with all of my one-to-one coaching clients as well. And if you do implement it with everything else that I've just mentioned, it will really help bring it all together. So I would really recommend hitting the link in my bio, downloading it, watching the video, and then putting it into action. But I am going to wrap this video up here. I hope it was useful. If you do have any questions, pop them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.